So good day everyone. So our next topic is about assessing abdomen. Let's start with the collecting subjective data. So in collecting subjective data, the data will focus on the symptoms of abdominal organs and the functions of digestive system, along with the aspect of nutrition, usual bowel habits, and lifestyle. So take note that the client may be uncomfortable, therefore ask the questions in a matter of fact to put the client at ease. And the client may also have difficulty describing the nature of the problems. So you need to facilitate client responses and quantitative answers by encouraging descriptive terms and examples, rating scales and accounts of effects on activities of daily living. So here are the questions that you may ask when assessing the abdomen. So first, in history of present health concerns, you may ask, are you experiencing abdominal pain? If with clients say yes, use cold spa to further explore to these symptoms. Do you experience indigestion? Again, if the clients say yes, use the cold spa to further explore for these symptoms. Do you experience nausea or vomiting? Have you noticed an increase or decrease in your appetite? Can you describe your tools? Have you experienced a change in bowel elimination patterns? Do you have constipation or diarrhea? Have you experienced any yellowing of your skin or white of your eyes, itchy skin, dark urine, or clay-colored stools? Then in personal health history, you may ask, have you ever had any of the following gastrointestinal disorder? Have you had any urinary tract disease such as infections, kidney disease or nephritis, or kidney stone? Have you ever had abdominal surgery or trauma to the abdomen? In family health history, you may ask, has anyone in your family had any type of gastrointestinal cancer or other GI disorders? And last, in lifestyle and health practices, you may ask, do you drink alcohol? If yes, how much and how often? What type of foods and how much of food do you typically consume in a day? How much and how often do you exercise? Can you describe your activities during day? And what kind of stress do you have in your life? How does it affect your eating or elimination habits? So then there are three types of pains that may occur in the client, including visceral pain, which occurs when hollow abdominal organs such as intestine become distended or contract forcefully, or when the capsules or solid organs such as the liver and the spleen are stretched. Then the parietal pain, which occurs when the parietal peritoneum becomes inflamed, as in appendicitis or peritonitis. And the referred pain, which occurs at the distant sites that innervated at approximately the same levels as the disrupted abdominal organs. So this type of pain travels or refers from the primary site and becomes highly localized at the distant site. You can see at the pictures the patterns and the referent of the abdominal pain. You may read and explore for further information in a references book, Health Assessment in 5th edition, page 481. And these lists are the characters of abdominal pain and implications that may attach to it. So you can also read it and see for further information in our reference book, Health Assessment in 5th edition, page 482.
Next is the collecting objective data. The abdominal examination is performed for a variety of reasons, which are as part of a comprehensive health examination, to explore GI complaints, to assess abdominal pain, tenderness or masses, or to monitor the client post-operatively. The sequence for assessment of the abdomen differs from the typical order of assessment. First is inspection, followed by auscultation, and then percussion, then palpation. Adjust the bed level as necessary throughout the examination and approach the client from the right side. Use tangential lighting, if available, for optimal visualization of the abdomen. Preparing the client. Ask the client to empty the bladder or to urinate before beginning the examination to eliminate bladder distension and interference with an accurate examination. Instruct the client to remove clothes and to put on a gown. Help the client to lie supine with the arms folded across the chest or resting by the sides. Next is the physical assessment. When examining the structures in the abdominal quadrants, remember to perform the examination in the following order: inspection, auscultation, percussion, and palpation. Common abnormal findings include as shown below. These are the assessment procedure. You can see the normal and abnormal findings in the MS Word form of our report. First is the inspection. Observe the coloration of the skin. Note the vascularity of the abdominal skin. Note any striae or stretch marks, and then inspect for scars. Ask about the source of a scar and use a centimeter ruler to measure the scar's length. Document the location. Assess for lesions and rashes. Inspect the umbilicus. Note the color of the umbilical area. Observe umbilical location, assess contour of umbilicus, and inspect abdominal contour. Sitting at the client's side, look across the abdomen at a level slightly higher than the client's abdomen. Figure at the left shows the example of abdominal contours. Assess abdominal symmetry. Look at the abdomen as the client lies in a relaxed supine position. Do further assessment. To further assess the abdomen, ask the client to raise the head. Inspect abdominal movement when the client breathes or respiratory movements. Observe aortic pulsations and observe for peristaltic waves. Let's move on to auscultation. Using the diaphragm of the stethoscope, auscultate for vowel sounds. Begin in the right lower quadrant and proceed clockwise, covering all quadrants. Listen for at least 5 minutes before determining that no vowel sounds are present and that the vowels are silent. Confirm vowel sounds in each quadrant. Listen for up to 5 minutes to confirm the absence of vowel sounds. Note the intensity, pitch, and frequency of the sound. Auscultate for vascular sounds. Use the bell of the stethoscope to listen for bruits over the abdominal aorta and renal, iliac, and femoral arteries. Using the bell of the stethoscope, listen for venous hum in the epigastric and umbilical areas. Auscultate for a friction rub over the liver and spleen. Listen over the right and left lower rib cage with the diaphragm of the stethoscope. Let's move on to percussion. Percuss for tone in all quadrants. Then percuss the span or height of the liver by determining its lower and upper borders. To assess the lower border, begin in the right lower quadrant at the mid-clavicular line and percuss upward. Note the change from tympany to dullness. Mark this point. It is the lower border of liver dullness. To assess the descent of the liver, ask the client to take a deep breath and hold. Then repeat the procedure. Remind the client to exhale after percussing. To assess the upper border, percuss over the upper right chest at the MCL and percuss downward, noting the change from lung resonance to liver dullness. Mark this point. It is the upper border of liver dullness. Measure the distance between the two marks. This is the span of the liver. Repeat percussion of the liver at the midsternal line. Percuss the spleen. Begin posterior to the left mid-axillary line and percuss downward, noting the change from lung resonance to splenic dullness. A second method for detecting splenic enlargement is to percuss the last left interspace at the anterior axillary line while the client takes a deep breath. Perform blunt percussion on the liver and the kidneys. This is to assess for tenderness and difficult to palpate structures. Percuss the liver by placing your left hand flat against the lower right anterior rib cage. Use the ulnar side of your right fist to strike your left hand. Perform blunt percussion on the kidneys at the costovertebral angles over the 12th rib.
Next is palpation. First, perform light palpation, and next, deeply palpate all quadrants to delineate abdominal organs and detect saddle masses. Next is palpate for masses, and palpate the umbilicus and surrounding area for swellings, bulge, or masses. Next is palpate the aorta, liver, spleen, kidneys, and urinary bladder. Here are the pictures on how to perform the palpation. We could find them on the book as well as the normal and abnormal findings. So, when we are palpating the abdomen, avoid touching tender or painful areas until last and reassure the client of your intentions. Also, work with the client to promote relaxation and minimize voluntary guarding. Next is test for ascites. Test for shifting dullness and perform the fluid wave test. Next is for the appendicitis. First is assess for rebound tenderness and test for referred rebound tenderness. And next is assess for soft sign and assess for obturator sign. And lastly, perform the hypersensitivity test. Next is test for cholecystitis. Assess right upper quadrant pain or tenderness which may signal cholecystitis. It is the inflammation of the gallbladder. Validating and documenting findings. Validate the abdominal assessment that you have collected. This is necessary to verify if the data are reliable and accurate. So you are going to document the assessment data by following the healthcare facility or the agency policy. Analysis of data. After collecting assessment data, you will need to analyze it using diagnostic reasoning skills. So there are some possible conclusions that may be drawn after assessment of the client's abdomen. So you could find the list of the selected nursing diagnosis and the selected collaborative problems on the book. Medical problems. After grouping the data, it may become apparent that the client has signs and symptoms that may require medical diagnosis and treatment. So referral to a primary care provider is necessary. Abnormal findings. So in our abdominal distension, the pregnancy is included so that the examiner may differentiate it from abnormal findings. It causes a generalized protuberant abdomen, protuberant umbilicus, a fetal heartbeat that can be heard on auscultation, percussible tympany over intestines, and dullness over the uterus. Feces. Hard stools in the colon appear as a localized distension. Percussion over the area discloses dullness. Flatus. The abdomen distended with gas may appear as a generalized protuberance, or it may appear more localized. Tympany is the percussion tone over the area. Fat. Obesity accounts for most uniformly protuberant abdomens. The abdominal wall is thick, and tympany is the percussion tone elicited. The umbilicus usually appears sunken. Fibroids and other masses. A large ovarian cyst or fibroid tumor appears as a general distension in the lower abdomen. Acidic fluid. Fluid in the abdomen causes generalized protuberance and inverted umbilicus. Percussion reveals dullness over fluid and tympany over intestines. Umbilical hernia results from the bowel protruding through a weakness in the umbilical ring. This condition occurs more frequently in infants but also occurs in adults. Diastasis recti occurs when the bowel protrudes through a separation between the two rectus abdominis muscles. It appears as a midline ridge. The bulge may appear only when the client raises the head or cough. Epigastric hernia. It occurs when the bowel protrudes through a weakness in the linea alba. The small bulge may appear midline between the xiphoid process and the umbilicus. It may be discovered only on palpation. Incisional hernia occurs when the bowel protrudes through a defect or weakness resulting from a surgical incision. It appears as a bulge near a surgical scar on the abdomen. Next, enlarged liver, or what we call hepatomegaly. It is defined as a span greater than 12 cm at the mid-clavicular line and greater than 8 cm at the mid-sternal line. An enlarged non-tender liver such as cirrhosis. An enlarged tender liver such as congestive heart failure, acute hepatitis, or abscess. Liver lower than normal. A liver in a lower position than normal with a normal span may be caused by emphysema because the diaphragm is low. Enlarged kidney. An enlarged kidney may due to a cyst, tumor, or hydroperosis. It may be differentiated from enlarged spleen by its smooth rather than sharp edge, the absence of a notch, and tympany on percussion. Enlarged nodular liver. An enlarged, firm, hard nodular liver such as cancer, or other causes may be late cirrhosis or syphilis. Enlarged spleen. An enlarged spleen is defined by an area of dullness exceeding 7 cm. When enlarged, the spleen progresses downward and in toward the midline. Enlarged gallbladder. An extreme tender, enlarged gallbladder suggests acute cholecystitis. A positive finding is Murphy's sign. It is a sharp pain that causes the client to hold the breath. Liver higher than normal. A liver that is in a higher position than normal span may be caused by an abdominal mass, ascites, or paralyzed diaphragm. Lastly, we have aortic aneurysm. A prominent lateral pulsating mass above the umbilicus strongly suggests an aortic aneurysm. It is accompanied by a broad and a wide bounding pulse.